Hello, and welcome to a new live stream, and especially a special welcome for Hui, Petra, and Disayan, who just joined the Patreon. Thank you very much for giving it a try. Okay, very exciting time. It's a new piece. It's a new subject. This is the result of the poll I gave you guys to choose last month, and the winner was the Paladin. It's an interesting subject because I don't see much of these, so it's pretty cool that this was the winner. And I have to say I'm really excited because it's the first time I really share this process that I've sort of developed through years of working with Hearthstone and also with other clients. So okay, let me without further ado, let me just get started. Okay, I can see the live chat updating. Hey Anthony, hey Emily, nice to have you guys on board. Okay, so I think you can see my screen. Yes, everything is there, everything is live. So basically it's in 5 steps, this sort of process. It takes you from the time you receive the brief to the time you sort of have a line art to color, like a line art that has been approved. And by that time, this 5th step that you can see on the far right, that would be, the beginning of just actually, rendering the piece. But these 4 previous steps would sort of, encompass all the research that goes before, having this nice, neat little line art over there on the right. And these are pretty important steps because I specialize as an illustrator, and I know a few of you guys also, sort of go more towards that direction. Concept art is something that, we usually don't really associate with illustration. It's either one or the other, but there is plenty of overlap, and the more the better, I think. And it took me a few years to really sort of, indulge more, explore more the design aspect of illustration, and I because I noticed a sort of that I was lacking, a few things that I could, be okay with the rendering. I could develop a technique that was like decent enough, but the design part, that's where that's what I knew I needed to develop. And so to do that, I sort of, I do what we all do, right? Like I just observed better artists, and one of my favorite better artists is Raphael Zanchetin, and I'm sure you guys, most of you know who he is. At least if you're familiar with Hearthstone, you'll definitely know who he is. And I of course he's excellent at it, but one thing that really piqued my attention lately was that he was hired by Blizzard, like as an in-house artist. I'm an outsourced artist, but he became more than a freelancer. He became like an in-house artist. And in the latest expansion, which is still in development, not the one that you guys can see now online, but the one that we have just been developing, Raphael was giving me his designs that I was going to illustrate. So I could see that there is something to. There's something more than just illustration and rendering abilities that make a good artist. If you develop these design strategies, if you develop your design sense of as an artist, you can really skyrocket. Like your career can take a turn that is a dramatic difference from other artists. And also, if you design more, first of all, you get to find and remember solutions that that you can use later. Of course, it's a design language, shapes language that you can always use later. But also, just as an amateur, as a student, for example, it's very, just in itself, it's very gratifying to illustrate design that you did, not just do fan art. Fan art is great as it is, but it doesn't impress necessarily a client the same way. Something that was developed personally all the way to the rendering would. And that's something, you need to make that better impression. You need to show that you have a sense of initiative, that you have a sense of, improvisation, that you're not just gonna follow orders, so to speak, right? You're not just gonna follow a brief and sort of, passively just render out, solutions, but you have a sense of improvisation. So that's something I definitely knew I needed to work on, and after a few trials and errors, I think I sort of nailed a kind of at least a solution that works for me, and I hope would work for you guys as well. And it starts with a of course with a brief, right? Like you get your description from your client, and so in this case, it's the result of the poll in our case. So what I did, I was like, okay, what do I know about? Let me open that here. What do I know about paladins, right? And very little, right? I mean, I've rendered my fair share of paladins, but truly I've never really designed a paladin before. I never really sort of really I'm sorry, I think I need to. Okay, sorry, I was just waiting for my screen to update. Okay, I see it's updating. All right, just to make sure I'm actually showing you everything I wanted to see. So this page here, it's just a lousy picture from my notebook. It's the sort of first step I took. I sort of it's called a mind map. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the concept, right? It's instead of doing a list of things, you just start with the concept in the middle, and like paladin objects, things that are usually associated with paladins, and you sort of branch out, what's there, right? So actually, let me open it in Photoshop so I can draw over, because I didn't really expect to show you this at first. I just sort of did it for myself, but after finally I was like, hey, why not? It pertains to this lesson, so might as well, right? It's not super clear, but I hope I can make it clearer by overdrawing. So you would have your original, like your idea first, and then branch out, right? So what do paladins wield? They usually wield these big square hammers, right? A square, like we all know shape language is important, right? Like breaking things down into basic shapes, and a thing that's common to paladins is squares and diamond shapes. So square is pretty basic, right? I kind of like diamond shape, which is just like I guess 45-degree rotation of a square, and that's suddenly a bit more dynamic, right? It's not too crazy spiky like demon weapons would be. A demon weapon, you could imagine more of a curvy shape, like a sickle or something like that, or triangular things. 4-pointed is usually more square, so to speak, and the good guys usually it's less dynamic. So if you want to give it that extra dynamism, rotate it a little bit, make it a diamond shape, and it's already a little offset. It's suddenly a little bit more interesting, I think. And then I went further, because I sort of researched the lore of World of Warcraft, and what else do paladins wield? And they will wield double, like two-hand axes, and maces, one-handed maces, and one-handed axes as well. However, I sort of already by this point, I think I'm gonna stick to the basics, something we would associate with paladin, without any confusion, because axes can be barbarians, warriors, you see, whereas like square warhammers are like unequivocally associated with paladins. And then, okay, what else? That's weapons. Then what are defensive weapons or armor, so to speak? So big chunky shoulder plates, pauldrons, those are super common in paladins. And these sort of like Trojan war helmets, I guess, with this sort of a peak for the nose in the middle, this sort of bar in the middle. What else? Then of course you have fabric, because paladins are these sort of like monks, or at least there's a sort of like ritualized function to what they do. So sort of like religious function. So anything that has to do with, you know, you're gonna have like robes and capes, cloaks, stuff like that. That's a poor sketch for a cloak. But you see, I'm just sort of extrapolating these sort of deducing one object after the next, you know, from the next one, and etc. etc. I saw a lot also of you know, these sort of diamond jeweled, you know, like these sort of blue gems in a sort of metal framing. And I saw a few of these also like belt plates, you know, like they sort of hang from the side of the armor, like around the hips. You'll have these sort of belt, like these plates that are attached to the belt. Also a lot of, you know, lion and eagle imagery. So that would go for like, you know, eagle heads, wings, talons, you know, claws, etc. And same for lions, you know, just lions, lion paws, etc. And also to sort of go back to the idea of, you know, this monk function, this sort of spiritual function. You have really the sort of the whole spectrum of you know, religious office, right? Like you have this sort of this shiny pompous sort of, you know, ornaments, you know, the wings, the golden stuff, the lofty, you know, animal imagery. And you have also this sort of down to earth, humble, you know, elements that are, you know, like this sort of leather bound sort of Bible or codex, or these sort of scrolls that are usually like chipped or scrapped or something. These satchels, these pouches that contain, you know, medicine or like extra, you know, healing products. And then of course I sort of extrapolated, you know, further, like what other ritual objects are there, right? And you have like, of course, you know, if you go with the imagery of like a monastery or a church, you have like bells and well, that's a poorly drawn incense burner. And I thought, oh, that would be cool, like if an incense burner could be kind of a flail, you know, like sort of mace with a chain. But I sort of I researched a little bit more and in the World of Warcraft lore, and there's not really anything that indicates, you know, incense burners, bells, or flails, like things animated with a chain. So I thought of, you know, let's just give it up. But at least, you know, like doing these sort of mind maps sort of help you lay everything on the table, you know, like all these ideas, all and you can sort of deduce and develop, extrapolate one object from the previous one, you know, one object to the next, and see where it, you know, where it leads you. And you can find some cool ideas, you know, like once you have all these graphic elements, you can combine them, as we'll see very soon, into different armor parts, different costume parts. Like this wing, for example, can be like behind you know, the boot, like a sort of a spur, or sort of like a Pegasus or Hermes, Hermes, you know, sort of boot. It can be, you know, part of a shoulder pad as well. You know, it can be you know, there's different various applications. It can be like, it can jut from the side of a arm, you know, arm brace, I guess, like this sort of forearm armors. You know, there's different ways you can sort of combine and use these graphic elements. So okay, so that would be, I'm still on the first, like the leftmost part over here. So mind map, gather reference, and, you know, use this reference also to establish your mind map. Actually, let me show you a few of the references I gathered. You of course you have these in the like the files that I shared with you. But let me share with you why I selected some, you know, some and not others. Those are my main ones. Of course, there's a ton more, and the other that I don't show here, like are more, you know, out of left field, right? They're more they pertain to other universes, other IPs, so I cannot use them really directly if I want to stick to, you know, the Hearthstone-y, you know, World of Warcraft style. So I'm gonna have to consciously stick to those familiar tropes of Hearthstone, you know, characters, design, you know. Otherwise, I risk, you know, going off the ledge. For example, the idea of the flail, you know, this sort of the chain with the incense burner, that would not belong to the World of Warcraft universe. So I just sort of, I put it there on the mind map, but I sort of have to give it up. So that's of course, a great illustration by Cole Eastburn. Plenty of, elements to gather from that. Of course, I'm going to try to not lift, just directly these graphic elements from his picture, but actually, reinvent them, repurpose them. This is a great armor, like still a paladin, but very different, still from World of Warcraft. Another sort of subclass of paladins. This is a great reference that I found, and what I like about it is that it's still very generic. So a lot of these can be employed and repurposed. For example, this whole arm structure. This is actually, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, is the one I used in my picture. I really liked it because it gives that extra tank, extra like robust feeling, bulkier feeling that we don't see necessarily in this one, even though the idea is the same, right? Like paladins are these big healing tanks, right? They take a lot of damage, and they need to really look different from other characters. And this is like the classic, World of Warcraft paladin, and you have these tropes already, these visual tropes that we saw in the mind map, the lion imagery, the eagle imagery there with the wing, these badges, symbols, these sashes, you have these sort of scarves, this fabric just hanging around. So those are very classic. Like they're gonna need to be reinvented, so to speak, and I'll show you how. But there's plenty of elements. I could almost just limit myself to just these, but if I would, it would be too limited in terms of shapes, like shape language. So that's why I like this one, because it's very the overall, the bigger shapes, the primary shapes are very different. But one thing that I want to show you later is that by reusing the tertiary shapes are these smaller, graphic elements, like the trimming, the gold trimming around these armor parts, or the motif, like the lion motif, or stuff like that, or the scratches or the rivets. If we reuse these tertiary details into this bigger shapes, these primary shapes, we can really combine and still be on point, still belong to the universe, the Hearthstone universe. So that would be, I'll keep this on a separate on my other screen, so you won't see it, but usually, just to let you know, that's what I do. I have these references open on the side, and I just do my thing. I just sort of sketch and like switch from one picture to the other, and try to come up with these designs. And I mean these silhouettes, these 9 silhouettes there. And so, and then okay, still in the first part, the leftmost part, then I would sort of start developing the personality of my character, to kind of think, because it's going to be one illustration, one dude, so it cannot be just this generic face. It needs to have an appeal, an individual characteristic, and we're going to see very soon that will be our next part. How to sort of what solutions I sort of use on a daily basis to come up with this part here, this personality. Then we'll have this is the bigger part, like the more, the rougher, like the toughest part, I guess. I think is to come up with iterations, all these ideations. Composition, I have 6 compositions there, 6 weapon designs, and 6 sort of armor designs. They're very rough, they're very simple, they're just silhouettes at this stage, and the compositions are also pretty rough. They're just like one brush, one color, and then this is the interesting part. This is where we sort of curate these designs on the left into a more, a simpler selection for our client. And that's this one sheet is what we're going to send to the client. So as you can see, I just sort of drew over, these silhouettes, and then like started implementing secondary shapes, tertiary shapes a little bit here and there, not too detailed, you still want to save some time. And same for the weapon. And the compositions, I just sort of refine the silhouettes. I just choose one of the designs to as a sort of, you know, as a example. But of course, you know, rough enough that we can sort of see, okay, you know, the client can imagine other characters that will work also for other characters. So yeah, just refine silhouettes with a little bit of lighting. Then this step here, the fourth step, it's sort of, it's not necessary. It's sometimes, you know, if the client is okay, I want design A, but can you sort of refine the design? It's a little too rough still. So okay, you can just sort of, you know, refine the design, of course, like sort of make a cleaner line art. And actually, a lot of these, this is not in the same pose, right? You can do right away in the same pose, but I sort of took that middle step, sorry, because you know, like by itself, just standing there, because I thought it would be cool to show like later on Instagram or ArtStation, just that extra step, you know, that extra, hey, here's, you know, this is not just from rough design to finished. There can be that little extra in the middle, that just something else to share, you know. But if you and having that extra step still, as you can see, I sort of copied like and pasted just some elements, like the arm part. I didn't redraw the whole thing. I just copy pasted it. Same for the shoulder pad. I just changed a few things. I copy pasted also the knee plate over there, and just, you know, transformed it a little bit for both knees. It's actually the same element, but you know, you can come up with these little solutions, like these little cheats, you know, to make your life easier. But the big part really is this part here, coming up with the middle ideas. So okay, without further you know, ados, let's get to it. So let me close this mind map thing. It's so rough, I'm almost ashamed to show it to you. And let me open the personality things here, and let me show you as well the reference I had for it. I realized I didn't include it in the bundle, these references, but I will share them with you, of course. These come from like just Pinterest references. This is some facial expressions from Justin and the Knights of Valor. You know, you can find them very easily. This is from Tangled. Like if you type Tangled facial expressions, you'll find these immediately. Again, I'll share it with you, but you know, this is not some obscure references. These are super common. So let me put it on the left, and let me show you this on the right. So well, like I had just before, yeah, I sort of went with, you know, basic shapes again, like we've all, you know, heard about that, right? Like this is pretty, you know, standard at this point. It's just to use, you know, different shapes to get started. And what you can do is select one of the faces on the left, sorry, and, you know, sort of reinterpret that stuff and use the facial cues, you know, to impart that personality, that extra personality to your character. And we're going to be super lazy, like the face in the end, like this, in the end, this is the final face. I use it in the final line art. Like this is all, the point is to sort of draw a face in a way that you can repurpose it easily. So try to avoid, you know, symmetrical faces, like just front, you know, front expression. Try to have it a 3/4 from the front, like for Hearthstone cards, which are like the characters are always, sorry, not even usually, just always from a front view. You know, there's no 3-point perspective. There's no like from below. There's not a lot of dramatic angles on Hearthstone illustrations. It's always a frontal view of a character. And to offset the sort of boring, you know, frontal view, like you have your character's head turned a little bit sideways. So if you go with that, you can be sure that you can repurpose and reuse this face later in your final art. So let me just do one. I'll just do one here with you guys. So I shared with you this sketch brush. I really like it because it has this. You see, it has this nice little edge to it, and when you make it small enough, it's almost like it's got that double line feeling, you know, that I really dig. You see here, like it's like a pencil whose lead was a little bit broken, you know, a little bit irregular, and I really like that. It gives some character to your strokes. So let's get started. I'll use this guy here, like this sort of funny face over there. Maybe turn it on the side, because I usually prefer, I'm left-handed, and my faces look better, like I have a easier time drawing from, you know, that direction when the face faces right. So let me just start with a basic shape. I'm realizing this session is already almost half an hour in, so I'm gonna try to keep it, you know, concise. I'll jump pretty quickly from one subject to another, but if it runs long, you know, feel free to to drop out and just rewatch, you know, at some point when you're when you can stand my voice again, you know, when you're refreshed. But I realize, like, I prepare always like 2-3 topics, and they take a while to go, you know, from one to the other, to cover everything. So okay, let's just I'm giving it, you see this sort of wedge a little bit, this sort of wedge shape, turning it already like a 3/4. I don't always like draw the middle line because it can be a bit too distracting. Especially at this stage, like this is like free, like try to keep it, you know, free flowing, you know, light, loose, you know, and just try to find secondary shapes that are interesting, that maybe stick out a little bit, like this nose. I'm gonna try to have the nose sort of poke out of the, you know, the silhouette of the face. I like this this straight eyebrow because it gives this idea of very, like, he's very intently, you know, thinking really hard and very cautiously, carefully. It's very different than if you drew, you know, like a loose, like an elbow more, sorry, an eyebrow more up. Get a little bit of cheekbone over here. Maybe not so like poking out too much the nose. And now that's an interesting part, is the mouth. Like, you can lift these solutions there, but as long as you repurpose them, I think you're free from like being called a plagiarist. You know, try to sort of give it your own spin, you know, in terms of proportions, exaggeration. The key shapes here in the lip is this one here, and this one here. I'm realizing now, however, that the face, like the, you know, these eyes, nose, mouth, they're too big. So I'm gonna use everything in Photoshop's power to cheat my way back to correctness. I do like, however, that the lower lip sticks out. That's pretty cool. I want to see if I can implement that. It could work. So you see, like, very gestural, you know, simple lines. And try to focus on like a little mini story or something. Like, what is he doing? Is he like gossiping or something? Is he teasing somebody? It's a little complicated. It's a complex. It's a subtle expression. For example, let me do something with the eyes. Like, if we did something like this, like a more, you know, nope, something maybe more like this. It could look more like he's looking out for eavesdropper, you know, like somebody who's trying to catch him saying something kind of secretive, and the mouth sort of like stretching towards that direction means that he's trying to confide, to like give a sort of secret, or to sort of be heard only by the person next to him. So you can sort of imagine these little, you know, traits of characters, these sort of tendencies that your character might have. Like he's a, and whatever it is, you know, as long as it's fun to see, it's okay. It's, of course, it's more complicated when the brief is clear and say, okay, he's this kind of guy, so you might have to, you know, focus on one kind of expression. But in this, if you're building a portfolio or doing something for fun and you just want to show your chops, just, you know, you're even more free to do whatever you want. Now let me redraw the eyes because they're a little bit too big and close together. One thing you can do is sort of establish the limits, the corners of the eyes, like this. And now what I'm doing, you see, like, instead of doing this for the eyes, I'm doing this. And these two curves sort of are parallel to each other. Well, these two curves are parallel to each other also. So that's a good way of like establishing a sort of, you know, a nice little symmetry, a sort of a consistency between you know, the eyes, is to have the arcs sort of parallel each other. He has a very tiny top of the head there. Might be too much, but who cares? Okay, you see I did this cheekbone here, and as I'm doing it, I'm sort of trying to think in parallels, you know, like, okay, this is the parallel to that one. Like what other, you know, what other curves am I sort of echoing over here when I'm doing this? So I can echo, you know, like all curves that have the similar like curvature and angle, all lines that have this similar sort of behavior, they will establish they will sort of there will be a connection between them, and the viewer will be able to judge how purposeful, like subconsciously will be able to judge how purposeful you have been with your drawing. So, you know, when I was talking about the eyes doing something similar, like try to do that like throughout your whole character. And maybe more, yes, more like this with the eyebrow. I'm going to lift this one a bit more. It gives a little extra character. I like this sort of, you know, an eyebrow that goes like this, while the other goes like that. That's very that adds a lot of character, and you can see in the reference a lot of that goes on. You see, like, and it really gives that extra, like, it gives that idea that the character is in between two feelings, or is debating something, like in his mind, like he's, you know, one eye thinks something, the other eye thinks something else, you know, like that little asymmetry in the eyebrows. That's super important and super useful. Another thing you see, like if like if the lower eyelid has this sort of a raised, you know, is raised like this, it implies more like cautiousness, like this idea of like a doubt, you know, like something like a fear of an outside threat. It's like, because, you know, the eyes are super sensitive, right? They're fragile and sensitive, so you can imagine the eye sort of pulling the blanket up, pulling the cover up, you know, hiding itself. But at the same time, it's sort of raising the eyebrow to sort of clear up the view and perceive as much as possible while being hidden. And you know, like this, I'm sort of realizing that as I'm painting and talking to you guys, but this is stuff that you can sort of realize by yourself if you just pay attention, if you let yourself, if you give yourself enough time to try different solutions, you know, try different different ideas like this, like an eyebrow up, an eyebrow lower, you know, exaggerate, see what it means, you know, see what it suddenly makes your character feel like, and you'd be surprised, you know, what you can come up with. The subtlety of the solutions you can come up with is pretty surprising. But it boils down to giving yourself, you know, plenty of time. Really, that's super. That's the sort of I'm gonna give extra element there. You see, like this middle part of the lip. Maybe that's a little too sensual. Let me think about symmetry again, you know. Like this would be the middle of my lip. Like, does the arc behave properly on one side and the other, you know? An attractive character has a more symmetrical, you know, face. If the lip is way too thick over here and way too thin over there, suddenly it's the lack of symmetry implies a different thing, you know, implies a less attractive character, I guess. It's tricky to make a character attractive, so maybe a tooth there in the middle, another one here. Just trying. Sometimes, you know, like some solutions are not always permanent, but, you know, let them floating there for a while and see where it goes. Now let me see, because paladins have like sometimes beards, goatees, you know, I see a lot in the World of Warcraft references. And so let me see if a mustache would work. There's a pretty short upper lip. Sorry, let me drink something. I spend my days not talking at all, so Sundays are rough. Okay, so let's try this mustache thing. Try to avoid the, you know, this. Try to think more into, you know, clumps of hair. So something like this, you know, and if you try something on one side, try it right away on the other side. You know, see if it works on the other side. If you try something here like this, try it over there as well. Should it stick out more? Because you see, like, it's all about silhouette, right? I want the mustache to stick out so we can understand, even if we just had the silhouette, that okay, there's a mustache, you know, it's not a thick lip or whatever. And that's really all there is to it. Think about silhouettes, lines, where the line guides the eye, you know. Okay. Now let's see if a goatee would work, because a mustache alone, it's kind of a 1920s bodybuilder. Let me zoom out maybe. And again, I'm doing like these just clumps of hair. And this brush behaves pretty well, like in a curve. It got that extra, you know, that little, I say extra and little a lot, I realize that brush has a nice, you know, complexity. It's not too smooth, it's not too even. And you see it, I mean, right now my character looks pretty rough. It's also because I'm talking, you know, through it. So just rest assured, it's okay if it takes you, you know, a long time to come up with good ideas, you know, especially if you're warming up. It's all a matter of agreeing with your clients beforehand, you know. I rarely see a client say, okay, we need it by this time, you know, and we need 4 of them. Can you do it? You know, like I've rarely seen that. At least for Hearthstone, thankfully, Jeremy, the art manager, is very you know, like they know very well, like, okay, we just need the best from artists. So they will ask you like, how many can you do in how much time? You know, how much, like, this is our deadline. How many do you think you can do? And then it's on you, you know, like think, okay, I'd love to take 3 days for just faces and, you know, design the whole thing. And it's like, yeah, well, I think, you know, so say, okay, maybe I can just do 1 or 2, you know, in 2 months, you know, like waves are come in 2 months, you know, like these character orders, these assets, distributions. So yeah, if I have 3 months, I'll do 1, 2, 3. Who cares? You know, it's really up to you. As long as the result is there, it's all good. You know, from their point of view, it's all they want is a good result. So give yourself time to produce that good result. And if you give these extra steps to your client, you know, like, okay, here's the sketches I did. Here's some compositions. What do you think? Like all that extra stuff is really awesome. Like it really puts you in a good light with your clients. And I think that's one of the reasons why Raphael Sanchetin was hired, you know, as an in-house artist. It's like he went the extra mile, like every time, and that's a page I can take from his book, you know, like, and I really, you know, it's something that really changed my way of doing things, like taking the time, you know, and so I encourage you to also take the time. Okay, let's go for a haircut now. So he's a paladin, so, you know, it should have this sort of, I mean, I kind of like the idea of a Prince Charming sort of parted hair. I kind of like the naive, almost cretinous, you know, little part there on top of his little triangular head. So I think I'm gonna go for something like this, you know, like and in terms of ears also, like think of more of a brawler kind of ear, you know, like there's like the sort of you know, classic ear shape is this sort of, you know, something like this, I guess. You know, like this sort of question mark, but feel free to, you know, explore different shapes, like, you know, and especially like I think it looks more, you know, like how like certain dog breeds have their ears clipped, you know, so you have like this sort of arc at the bottom and it's sort of like a little pointier at the top. Or how, like, you know, some fighters, some brawlers have like cauliflower ears, and so having this sort of, you know, different shapes, like a more triangular, rougher looking, that's a possibility that you can explore, you know, that can be beneficial to your design. Let me just make it stick out a little more. Can even, sorry, wrong tool, can even rotate it so it sticks to the top of the top sticks to the skull right there, but the bottom sort of flares away. That's kind of interesting. Now let me erase, because I'm kind of okay with the goatee as it is. Let me just erase the parts of the lips and the top of the skull there. He looks a little Asian, but why not, you know, like not all paladins need to be Caucasians. Especially nowadays, you know, with there's a big effort, you know, from big you know, brands, you know, video game brands, to sort of, you know, diversify their cast, you know, like for many years, you know, like a human was just this white dude, right, in World of Warcraft. So, you know, feel free to explore the variety. So by this point, you know, like of course I would probably take a little more time. Okay, let me do it, why not? Let me just let me not rush. Maybe it's okay, it's all recorded anyway, and you can revisit these streams later if you want to, you know, take off for a while. I don't blame you. So, but okay, before I move on to silhouettes, let me show you how I would just sort of finalize this sketch here. I would sort of add more weight, like more line weight to the bottom, the parts that sort of, you know, face away from the light. Like this, under the nose. You see how suddenly you have more, you know, I don't know, it looks, yeah, it has more weight to it. It has more volume, more, it looks more, more real, anchored in space and light. And I'm keeping it pretty loose, as you can see. Like there's no, I mean, the shapes, you know, rendering, like, sorry, not rendering, sketching, you know, drawing eyes and everything, that I could maybe do a special on this, like a special sort of live stream on this, or, you know, in the Hangouts we can also just address the topic. But it's like eyes, nose, and mouth. Those shapes are sort of yours to develop. My sort of suggestion would be, you know, keep it simple. Reuse the solutions you see in your references. You know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, like that might take maybe a private, you know, lesson or something, or at least, you know, maybe some feedback to just. But like for the sake of being concise and sort of moving quickly enough from point to point, I don't really address these, and not too much in detail. But I mean, keep it simple. That's my sort of bottom line. Keep it simple. Reuse what you see in the reference, but just change the proportions, you know. And if you try these, you know, if you do this, like, okay, now I did one face, but if you do, you know, 3, 4, that's already a ton of practice. Like that's pretty cool, you know. And if you keep these 2 simple lines, you can really move on to pretty quickly from one to the next, and really accumulate a good amount of knowledge, you know, surprisingly, for just sketching, you see. So I think that would be it for, yeah, for a character. So at this point, let me show you what I would do. I would create a silhouette, so basically just selecting around the character, creating a new layer, making sure I fill in everything. My selection maybe didn't get everything there. And then, okay, let me close this reference thing and open the silhouettes. The armor design. Okay. So let me also deactivate this and show you what I did here. So basically what I did, I transferred this head and its sketch to this side. I hide the sketch maybe for now. And let me select just a slightly darker color so I can differentiate it from the body. Okay, now for the body, you can do 2 things. You can either, you know, do it yourself, which I recommend you to do that, because it's there's, you know, that extra you see there's already a little bit of personality, like a little bit of extra flair and exaggeration. Of course, it takes, you know, some knowledge of anatomy, and I recommend you, for example, Uldis Sarin's Anatomy for Sculptors, or also you know, Watts Atelier, the references that Vojta you know, shared. However you got to do it, you know, you got to do it. I can also recommend you to watch the previous live stream. Which one was it? It was number 7, the 7th live stream. it's the sketching part of this pirate zombie that I did. I do, you know, talk a little bit about you know, a few anatomical cues, you know, to help you out, you know. So I don't want to just reiterate that, especially if it's already been done a little bit. We can always talk more, you know, privately if you need some personal guidance, you know, on that subject. For the sake of simplicity, I'll just assume, you know, you're okay with, you know, sort of drafting. And as you can see, it's pretty loose, you know. It's not super detailed. You see, it's like, it's just good enough that we can see the physique, you know, we can sort of guess the physique. So that would be one way to do it. Another way would be this, to take a screen cap from Wowhead. Let me share actually the link with you guys. Oh, okay, by the way, now that I'm on the internet again, like on my browser, I can see, Voita, you said the Tangle stuff, the reference I just closed, right, is by Jin Kim. And yes, they are the best thing you can find on all the interwebs when it comes to expressions, for sure. Yeah. And you see, yeah, it's like, it's the same old, you know, like we all have these, we're all familiar with these references, but then, you know, this is my, like, I'm just letting you know, like, how I reinterpret, how I reuse these references to their, you know, to the maximum, you know, like make the most out of these, lift, you know, take mercilessly solutions from them, but just sort of reinterpret, you know, like seeing this sort of this Han, this sort of like Mongolian warrior type of face, you wouldn't really see, oh, that's that dude from Tangled, you know, like you can, there's enough personal, you know, transformation that you know, we know what, you know, it's okay, that's totally okay. Okay, sorry, let me go back to what I was saying. Let me share with you the link here. I think yes, okay, this link is to Wowhead. Let me show you here in the screen. Wowhead is a sort of database of 3D models from World of Warcraft, and you can view in 3D. Open this little window here. Let me just let it load a little bit. Okay, I think okay, all right. So you see, you can pose your character. Again, you know, same with the face, right? 3/4, and you're good to go, because this way you can use the face you did, and yeah, that's it. And it's less boring than just a frontal view, you know. Frontal view is great because if you have the symmetry tool in Photoshop, you know, you can just like draw on one side and it will just like do on the other side. But it's kind of cool. And I saw, like, I'm just taking a page from, you know, Raphael's book, you know, like his process, and it is cooler looking when a character is like 3/4 and you just go through the motions of, you know, drafting one side then the other, you know, like working out symmetry, showing your skills, you know. So anyway, I would screen capture this guy here. It takes a second, you know, to find like the naked versions of the models, but you know, you'll find them. And let me just bring that browser back on my other screen and show you here. Okay, so here we are with the thing. Now you just select, you know, with the lasso, just the character, you know, isolate it, and maybe, you know, turn it into gray. At least that's what I did, and that's it. You know, that's your base for the body. Maybe we can put the head over there. Ooh, why is it? Okay, let's put it back under here. Let's put it over the body and move it right. That looks cretinous as all hell. So yeah, let me actually use my this is like a, you know, plan B if you're not super confident with your, you know, if you want to go straight to the point, you know, with your character design. But I recommend, you know, it's good practice and it's great looking in the end if you have your own your own take on the physique, you know, of the guy. So basically what I did here, I just copied and pasted this these bodies. It's the same body, just stretched a little bit, you know, stretched differently. This is stretched more sideways. This is thinner with a little bit of adjustments, you know, like you see the belly is kind of adjusted. But otherwise it's very straight to the point. And I just like repeated it 3 times. Like, so we have 3 fat dudes, 3 skinny guys, and 3 like in the middle, sort of more athletic on the far right, like on the right. So, and that's plenty of diversity, you know, variety, like that, at least, you know, for what I wanted to explore. I was like, okay, that's enough, you know. Same goes for later. Let me show you now before I forget. For compositions, you see on the left I have a like a full movement composition. You know, the guy is actually lunging forward. In the middle, the guy is kind of like taking a step, and on the right, the guy is like still, is like just camped on his 2 feet. So, you know, there's sort of like basic variety, you know, try to establish these sort of basic varieties, you know, and simplify your life, you know, repeat, you know, copy paste, transform a little bit, you know, use all the digital shortcuts you can to simplify your life, but set yourself up for a variety. So, okay, let me maybe close this dude here. I'll save. So I have the full screen just for this this silhouette. So I have my head here. I have my body below, right? These 2 layers here. Maybe let me delete everything else so it's more clear. And now in between, what I'm gonna do, let me maybe make it lighter. Okay, something like this. Select the marker as an eraser and as a brush as well. Like these markers are from session 3. You'll see if you go back to the Patreon post and you go to the session 3, you'll see like there's a post just for brushes. If you have trouble accessing these, you know, let me know. Of course, I'll give them personally. Okay, so at this point right here, I've got like personalities, you know, like these heads, right? And I've got my my body, and I would just sort of create just armor parts. Like I have my reference, if you remember, like the reference I showed you earlier, like I've got them on my other screen, and I would just sort of like see, okay, I got this big, you know, try to lift, you know, these design elements, you know, like, and sort of apply them to my own characters, sort of changing proportions, you know, exaggerating certain shapes, either going symmetrically. So for example, redoing this shape here, you see the head is over, like the layer of the head is above the layer of the armor. So I can sort of tuck that shoulder pad, you know, behind the head. That's a pretty neat little trick there. So symmetry is always tricky when you're in 3/4 views, because you have to sort of pay attention to how far your elements sort of extend, right? So, okay, I see Hui. Sorry for going a little long. Yeah, enjoy the. I hope you enjoyed the break, and yeah, see you soon. And okay, let me get back to this. So yeah, symmetry. It's kind of tricky, 3/4 symmetry, but it does show, you know, it does show that you know what you're doing. So do what's hard, you know, like what's hard always pays off, you know. Now let me give you just my sort of how I pay attention to symmetry. So I got this here. When I'm painting this, I'm sort of like, okay, let me paint that here. When I'm painting this, you know, you don't want to do this because it means it's completely parallel, which is boring. You want it to sort of flare a little differently, you know. That's more interesting. When you have this, you know. And try to shorten a little bit, you know, like as the shape rotates away, things become shorter, you know. So this thing here becomes a little shorter over there. And, you know, at this stage, you know, keep it, you can keep it rough and take your time, you know, like try something here, try different polygons on this guy, you know, same layer, same thing. As you see, I sort of make it a little bit translucent so I can see how far I extend from the anatomy, you know. So I make sure, because if it's fully opaque, quickly like the whole thing is masked and I don't know like how close or how far I am from the, you see, and suddenly things can look kind of weird. So just make it a little bit translucent and try a different solution. So this time, let me just, you remember if we talked about like these basic shapes, right? Like these basic graphic ideas. Like for example, you can have this diamond shape here, you know, with the gem in the middle. We can even erase it here. And then, you know, make it maybe a wing, you know. And it's pretty crucial at this stage that you really let yourself come up with ideas, because what I've noticed, at least for me, is that my designs don't get better than this, you know. Like whatever I come up with here, I don't really like. Sometimes you think, okay, well, I'll just figure it out when I'm rendering, you know, and it rarely works out for me. So if it doesn't work out for you, you know, you might we might be on the same frequency, you know, like it's sort of your design, like nothing beats a sheet like this where you focus solely on shape design, you know, and nothing, you know, like these are still pretty, you know, primary shapes, like just silhouette of the design. So you can sort of focus on the size of things, you know, like for example, this diamond right now, it's exactly the same height as, sorry, let me make a new layer, make it clearer. This is a little too close, you know, it's too boring, it's too parallel, this line here. This is okay, because there's a little bit of extra, you know, here is more distance than here. I also recommend you view the very first episode. It's I do mention the golden ratio, and this is a super important ratio to learn, you know. So one, you know, a unit of 1 here to a unit of 1.618, that's the golden ratio, you know, dot dot dot. It's an infinite number, so, but you know, you simplify it by that number here, and that sort of that ratio between two lengths, you can, if you repeat it sort of consciously, you know, throughout your designs, it will give a sort of a sense of you know, consistency, and that everything sort of belongs together, you know. You know, and well, you could, you know, this takes a while, so I'll just show you maybe straight my solutions here. Feel free to develop some solutions more than others. You see, like some are left pretty blank because I soon realized, like, okay, this is not great, you know. And this is for you. This is not yet for the client. So, you know, this is just your sort of playground. So just make sure, you know, like all your capes are on one layer, so you can modify them all together, you know, jump from one to the other without having to, you know, sort through, you know, sift through your layers. This is my body layer. This is just one. Yeah, this is this sort of undergarment, like this sort of, you know, you see these sort of leather plates here. This is something, yeah, this is this guy's plates. This is, yeah, I make it separately because I needed, yeah, there was the cape over there, right? So I sort of isolated that layer here, that his leg armor. That's the armor. That's like some over the armor fabric. And that's your head. So yeah, try to, you know, keep it as simple as possible. Keep it accessible, you know, don't multiply too many layers. But like this stage is really, it's kind of daunting at the beginning because you have this syndrome of the blank page. You don't know where to start, but starting one thing, then jumping on the same layer to another character and trying something else, and then another one and trying something else, like, you know, bouncing from one to the other and trying different solutions, erasing, you know, and keeping it rough, keeping it like this, you know, just simple silhouettes. That's really, it quickly becomes, you know, it sort of snowballs, you know, like you get better and better at this. And it's a good way at this stage to come up to make sure that your designs are different from one another. You know, if you sort of zoom out, you can see that the silhouettes are all different. And I sort of that's about it, right? And so okay, after that point, when I have some, you know, by this point I have sort of my favorite ideas. I also like asked my friends, you know, like a couple of buddies and my wife as well, like which one they preferred. And funny enough, like I never am a big fan of first solutions, but they all sort of like this one, the first one I sort of did. So, you know, why not? But you can see by the last one, we have much more like complex, you know, like a little bit more rich ideas. On this one here, I did this like this bell, you know, motif, like half a bell, you know, like a broken or like a bell that's been split in two, and that the guy just used as shoulder armor. Now this is not super World of Warcraft because it's, you know, it's not really, there's no bells like this, not really associated with paladins, at least not that I could find, so I sort of have to give it up. But it's a pretty cool, you know, it's like, why not, just for the, and that's something you can later you know, use in your own personal work, or it's just something you came up with, so, you know, save it, and you never know, you can always use it later. So by this stage I would select three characters and do, you know, a quick sketch over. You know, I pasted the faces on top, like the faces I did in the personality, you know, sheet, and I just sort of roughly like roughed them up a little bit with the sketch brush, just to make them, you know, not too small, because when you size down, you know, when you scale down, like the strokes become very tiny. So sort of like went over just quickly, and you see like just introduced, you know, inside shapes, you know, inside forms, like these tertiary details. Not too detailed, you know, don't waste your time at this stage, because, you know, it's deliver the information. Now pay attention while you deliver the information that you deliver like pertinent information, and by that I mean I'll refer to you again to the idea of symmetry. You know, like make sure these correspond to each other. You know, make sure the shapes sort of are okay. You know, like it's a little bit of discrepancy from left to right here. It's not perfect, but it's like it's okay enough, I guess. You know, make sure, you know, this shape here sort of echoes that shape there. You know, stuff like that. So. But, you know, you can keep it sort of loose. I wasn't really too sure about the inside, you know, armor, so I sort of, it's pretty rough, but it's still enough information. And when you compare, like there's enough difference between the three solutions that your client has plenty to do, plenty to choose from. So, and I did the same with the weapons. Let me maybe open the weapons for a sec. Here. It was a little more simple for weapons. I just came up with, you know, silhouettes first. You can use symmetry, you can use, you know, you can just copy and paste some elements. You know, some handles are the same, you know, from one to another. And I sort of reused the graphic elements we were talking about. You know, for example, there's that wing again here. It could be used in conjunction with you know, with another character who has wings as well. You see, like this guy here has wings over there. You know, some solutions like that can show up simultaneously, like from one character to another, like weapon. So yeah, the eagle sort of you know, mouth here, the lion head on the other side, like little chains, you know, like symbolically chains, you know, are pretty cool with paladins. You know, they mean like a bond, a link, you know, a sort of a brute, like a link that is maintained by brute force, you know, like iron, steel, this sort of thing. So it's like spiritual and temporal as well. You know, like little banners. Like I went a little crazy with this. You know, it's not very, but variety. You know, like as long as there's a change from one to the other, you're good. You know, like that's just make sure, you know, from the silhouette alone, there's plenty of variety, and then it's all the more easy to just jump in and sketch and just do these little, you know, just you're confident that your silhouette is so different from one to the other that the inner details can sometimes repeat themselves, sometimes, like, you know, slight variation. It will still look completely different. So that would be it for this. Again, like quick line art. You know, you see, I didn't really refine because most of these are going to be tossed. You know, like the client's not going to accept them. So deliver the information. Be precise, be purposeful, but don't spend your time really sketching super finely, because this you still want to save your time. And so yeah, I would have characters, the weapons, and now let me address these compositions. I'm gonna close these. Close this one as well, and open the rough compositions. Okay, one thing that's important if you're trying to do like a fan art, or if you're already working for Hearthstone or any card game, try to use the template, you know, the oval, like in the case of Hearthstone minions, like the oval template. Even better, try to include because in Hearthstone there's like there's the version of the character when you get the card, so it's like with a banner on it. So this banner would sort of crop, you see, a little more, and there's the version like on the board that is like without the banner. So make sure when you compose something that you take into account all the framing elements of your the artwork. And if you remember what I just said before, like I went for like 3, sort of basic movements, like full movement on here, middle movement here, and like still here. And this overall generic, characteristic sort of already divides your character into 3, like your iterations into 3 distinct groups. That sort of guarantees a basic variety always. So yeah, that's the main point again, like behind like this whole idea of design, like set up these basic variety, guardrails, so to speak. So let me start with the first one I did. So I went with the wet brush as an eraser and as a brush as well. And just sketch roughly. So let me do another one here. So this would be the semi movement in the middle, right? So let's think about the gesture first. An arm, like a leg like this, receding away. So let's make an arm going forward, and try to have these big curves already sort of accompany the frame, of the character, of the illustration. Try to occupy the composition enough without filling it completely, of course. But think about it, think of like having your character sort of adopt the framing, that curved framing. And one thing, if you remember, Emily, that we talked about, because you did the Hearthstone challenge, and one thing that was like kind of tricky in your first pose was that your character was kind of sideways and like shooting a bow, right? So you had like the bow hand like this, and then the character, it was a centaur sort of creature. So you have like this, the legs and whatever. And the problem, right, is that you have suddenly you have like a lot of empty space here, and so that's something, I recommend you to avoid. So use the frame and sort of like try to fill in as much as you can. Actually, I sort of misjudged the direction of the legs. This leg should go forward more with the arm, you know, the motion of walking, and this arm should go back with the leg, you know, the diagonally opposed leg. So I'm thinking about that gesture. I'm sort of also, you can already kind of implement one of the designs, you know, you did. You can have it on the side. Actually, that wouldn't be too bad an idea. Let me reopen that. Put it on the side. And use it as a sort of loose reference. You know, you don't need to stick too closely to this. This is pretty rough. Like, let me show you. In fact, I have other compositions that I did for Hearthstone. And let me show them to you. Hopefully you can, yes. Okay, so this is what I sent to the client, to Jeremy, and it contains 2 designs and 2 compositions. And so these, the compositions are very loose at this point because I don't know which design he's going to choose. So this is just pretty much a naked model, right? Same for the goblin here. You can include some details like the big boots, you know, in this case I sort of because they will be there, right? So, and it's sort of nice because it catches a bit of light there at the edge of the boot, so it can be a compositional element as well, something that you might want to indicate already, but keep it, you know, generic, like as a sort of a generic model for all of your designs. So that's it, I guess. Let me get back to this. So yeah, I've got this big arm here that I really like. You know, I spent some time sort of designing it, so I want to showcase this big, bulky kind of gladiator sort of arm. You know, it's a big brawler armor. So it's pretty cool to have it like sort of, you know, bulge forward like this, and have the other arm be more classic with this, you know, gauntlet sort of thing. And you see, like at this stage, it's pretty basic, right? Like it's like just I'm just getting started. Then once I have everything, I start refining and, you know, erasing more carefully in the middle, because I want to show some some more like one shape in particular. You know, like secondary shapes. You know, like this gauntlet. I want to show that, hey, there's going to be some extra some interesting design elements here and there that I want you to pay attention as already, you know. Still pretty loose, right? As you can see. Also, I'm using this textured blurred, like how to say, smudge tool. You see, it sort of blurs out things, and it's pretty useful when you want to, for example, when you erase some part, like let me erase something here, and then you want to sort of, you know, show that it's rounded, that it's not sharp. So you can use this blurry smudge tool to do that. So I shared it as well in the with the brushes. Just let me reiterate, by the way, like quickly, like a smudge tool, it's like does this by default, right? It just sort of pushes pixels, right? However, if you go to brushes, I know that some of you, I think Hui, you left, but if you listen to this, you use Clip Studio Paint, right? So you might want to explore the controls there, how to do it. But in the case of Photoshop, what you do is you turn on scattering, and improve, like tune up the scatter, and you see now it's gonna blur things instead of smudging them. So this is what I did for this brush. I just turned on the scattering. If I turn it off, as you can see, now it's pushing things. So this is how you make a sort of blurring smudge tool. Okay, let me get back to it. So smudging, you know, adjusting things, thinking more into like the finer design elements that you did, you know, like these curves, you know, trying to pose things a bit more purposefully, indicate already like the shape of the arm of the weapon. Think, you know, like if you really need, you can first do a sort of a anatomy sketch, like an anatomical guide, but I recommend like just go for something kind of loose and you know, push and pull here and there until it looks coherent. You're going for the visual impact, like the silhouette impact first, you know, like you're not sketching yet, like something to refine. So, you know, go with big bulky shapes, you know, show the, you know, some relationship, like use the negative space also to as you see here, to your advantage. Make sure, you know, you're at this stage you start making sure that your lengths, like your edges are not too similar. Like you don't have, here I'm gonna do something like this, so there's not, so it's not too similar, you know, not too, like, you want to avoid like two shapes that are exactly the same length, two curves that are exactly the same length. So try to, at this point, you know, already suggest that cool variety in your character, you know. And this took me, you know, a solid day, you know, it's to do just this. And then the next day I went further in, you know, like a good, you know, a good sort of a you know, rule of thumb is to sleep on it, you know. That's what I do. Like I work really hard on something and then just, okay, that's enough for today, let me see how it looks tomorrow, you know. When you have this, when you develop this tunnel vision, that's kind of a, you know, and try to do too much at once, sometimes that's a little bit that can lead to poorer results. And this compositional, you know, thing, this sort of technique, I also detail it a little more in the session 7 as well. So, you know, feel free to get there, to go back there, and I timestamped the YouTube video, so you can go straight to it and see exactly like how I, you know, how I go about it, because the next step after that is the final compositions here, the ones you're going to show your client. So, and these include, like, you know, bounce lights, front lights, you know, stuff like that. So basically, well, let me show you then quickly how to do them. That would be your basic color. Like this. And then I would, well, I mean, technically, I do, how to say, I do keep, you know, like it's not, I don't turn it back to flat like this. I do kind of still have the nuances in the middle. But what I do have on top is the rim lights. So go with like classic, you know, a bit of front light, a bit of rim light. And that's really what Hearthstone art is about, like front light that highlights the shoulders and the head, and the rim light that sort of accentuates, you know, highlights your silhouettes. And try to think, the rim light is super important because it's a pretty strongly contrasted area. It's pretty thin, and it's a good way to indicate a lot of information. Make sure you have some gradient to it. It's something I sort of reiterate from one session to the next. It's like the importance of gradients. You know, you want to avoid that flat line. You want to peak at some point and then, you know, recede, you know, fade away. You want to have like nice parallels, but not too parallel. I don't want to do this, you know, because that's too parallel to this. So let me maybe wrap it more here. That's already a bit more varied, a bit more better design, I guess. I'm using again the blurry smudge tool to add a little bit of gradient to it. And I'm going through the whole piece like this. So you see, like, if we zoom in and really analyze, you know, the complexity of that rim light, it's not super complex. The whole impression becomes more complex once we pair it with the front light. The front light also super basic, you know, just try to visualize which surface faces you the most. So that would be that area here, that corner there, you know, here and here, and just highlight these areas, you know, keep it simple. And as you can see, like as simple as these are, just by being paired together, the rim light and the front light, we already have a very neat, very nice, you know, impression, a very nice compositions already. And this level of detail is fine, you know, like because we detailed the designs a bit more, we sketched the designs a bit more. Now you see, if I open the final design sheet, that's what you would send to your client. Like this would be the middle step right there, the beginning of the interaction with the client. Like you got the brief, you developed, you know, the head, you got the reference, you sort of made a mind map, you know, you sort of established what pertains to your subject in terms of visual elements. You went through all that struggle of, you know, doing the, you know, really squeezing your brain like for all the ideas it's got, and then you sort of create this sort of curated, you know, selection in the middle. And that's already when the fun, you know, really starts. That's something. There's a nice sort of expectation. You know, I can't wait to see what they say, you know, what they think, which they select. And so yeah, the designs would be a little more, yeah, more established there than the composition. The composition would be just there to represent volumes, you know. And that would be it. Then let me show you, because there's so much, there's really a ton. The next step, it would be this one. Let's say your client selected one of the designs, but want you to maybe, you know, dig into the design a little more. You know, he likes the silhouette, he likes the impact of this one maybe, but he wants, like, this is too rough, like the plate armors are not great, like try to, you know, refine it. So this would be this sort of intermediate design here. You can also jump straight to the line art, at least for Hearthstone, for what I do, especially if the client is, you know, chose one composition already. So you can sort of skip this middle step here and refine the design straight away in the line art. But for the sake of that little extra step, like that's something you can show on your social media. That's just nice, you know. That gives a little more, you know. It shows that you went one extra, like an extra mile just for that. So let me open it. It's here somewhere. Why did I close this? Now I have to open everything again. Okay, here we are. I'm sort of, you know, skipping pretty quickly through the things, but, you know, separately later you can feel free to, you know, ask me more details, like more information. So this is the sort of beauty shot at the end. Let me remove that. And even the frame, because that's just useless. So okay, here we are. You have your the head and the you know, the approved design. And now your client wants you to dig in a little more, right? Or maybe just for your own benefit you want to do this. So first thing I would do, I would just blur that silhouette. You see, I just blurred it so that I get the general impact, but not, I don't get you know, your strokes when you sketch later, they won't get magnetized, you know, to what you have already. Like if this is too neat, like you feel tempted to, sorry, let me take the sketch brush. You might feel tempted to stick too closely to what you already have, and that's not necessary. That's not designing. That's you know, that's just following the edges. So blur it, and this way you'll have more, you know, you can sort of read through the edge and maybe reinterpret some of these edges. So this is what I did here in the first sort of rough sketch. I reduced the opacity of that thing, and, you know, very loose, kind of gestural, because what I'm trying to do at this stage is sort of well, let me take the Sharpie, that would be better. and a bright color, is to establish, relationship between curves and really refine, sort of like come through the design and establish curves that are a bit more purposeful, a bit more carefully designed. I keep it pretty loose at the beginning. It's just just to sort of get the feeling of it. Make sure, like at this stage, I sort of try to establish a good distance between things. I think at this, you see here, the distance between these lines is too regular, and that's not good enough. It needs to be more, because it can be confusing. So it needs to be more. This plate here needs to be closer with this edge, and that plate here needs to extend further away. That would be more interesting because there would be more space right here. So that's what I'm doing at this stage, pretty much, just sort of like loosely getting started. Then the second pass, like what I do basically is that when I'm ready to go to the next stage, I just duplicate my sketch layer, I hide the previous one, and I just keep going with this new one. So I know I have always this previous one as a backup. So this is what I did here. I just started refining, and you see here what I started to do. I started like thinking more closely about the symmetry. Oops, wrong. Okay, here, the symmetry between these two, and and then extending a middle line, a median, and going, okay, symmetry here as well. A median for the elbow pad. This is kind of a rare design for Hearthstone, I guess, for World of Warcraft. There's rarely anything on the elbow. It's usually like a sort of gauntlet and then a shoulder pad. So this could be flagged. I mean, this could be refused actually, in the game. But I guess nobody was here to tell me anything, so I just went with it. Okay, so yeah, thinking again about symmetry, and this is kind of what the same principle I applied during the face sketching, like a median line, and just paying attention, trying to echo. When you draw a line, try to draw its opposite pretty quickly to see if it works, establish that visual relationship between one side and the other. And also at this point, I'm trying to think, okay, what exactly do I want in terms of shapes? And I sort of boiled it down to these shapes here. Simple, and just reuse these shapes throughout the piece. So I have this big shape here, which is echoed here, 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 right? That would be our first shape. Our second shape, it would be, as a sort of counterweight to this convex shape. This more concave here. Try to echo it throughout the costume. Here. And this is to sort of add a bit of variety. Otherwise it would be too rounded, If the bottom is rounded as well as the top, it's less attractive. So try to establish, at this point, like your basic shape language, and go just a little further. And I mean, I'm a clunky designer like this. I'm not a great, so this takes forever, but it's worth it. It's really, this is something you can be proud of in the end. Your client will be very happy for you to have done it, to have gone this extra mile, especially if you're not really known for being a designer. This is super valuable, and it really hones your craft too as well, like personally. It really takes you to the next level. So that would be, okay, secondary thing, my second sort of pass. My third pass, you see I'm starting to add like these rivets. And I sort of simplified some shapes. You see here, had this sort of convoluted, 3 layers of edges, right? In itself, why not? But I had a hard time repeating it throughout, in other places, because you don't want one thing to just be there. If you have this relationship between lines here, you have to have it somewhere else, like on the pads somewhere else. So, but because it was too convoluted to do, I just sort of gave it up. And you see I went for a more simple edge that I can sort of repeat everywhere, and that makes the design more solid. And then, you know, further refinement here. And the pretty good part at this point is that you really are confident, you know, with your what it's going to be. Like all the information is there. All you have to do is sort of adapt this to your compositions. And so sometimes if you want, you can also just skip that step and go straight for the composition and redesign over the composition, like I'm going to show you here. Okay, here we are. So let me maybe, okay, this is the composition. I blurred it, like I just took it, I copied and pasted it onto you know, this canvas, and I blurred it for the same purpose as I did with the you know, the design, the final design, just to sort of have something to start from. And I sort of like sketched, you know, and well, what I did truly, as you can see, I lifted a few, quite a few solutions. The head, of course, is the same. The shoulder pad, it's also like pasted completely. The middle, this plate also lifted like completely. The shoulder pad here as well. What I sort of, and also the knee pad here. Actually, I redesigned the the thigh plates, I guess. And what I did, I just I took this part here. Let me select it here. I took this shoulder plate, sorry, and transformed it. And sort of repurposed it so that it ends up here. I reselected you know, this part here and moved it a little bit to hide my tracks, you know. I erased under it to, you know, of course, there, sort of adjust the design. But if you do that, like you can end up with a really nice and invisible, like unnoticeable symmetry between this part here and this part here, and your design is very solid. Same for the knee pad. I just copy, flipped horizontally, and pasted there with a little bit of transformation, you know, a little bit of distortion, and yeah, and same for the leg armor, exactly the same thing. So you see, you can really, with a bit of, you know, craftiness, you can really reuse the most of these this design here. And actually, it's pretty minimal, the amount of effort you have to do. You just have to make it match this composition. And just, you know, what I had to redo, I guess, reinvent, was this hand here. And what else? That's pretty much it, really. And of course, the hammer there. Now, what I want to show you, there's a little more, because there's some, like, it's crazy. Like, we have 3 sessions per subject, but there's so much going on, you know, that I hope you're still with me. But yeah, I got a ton to show you. So, okay, one thing I wanted to do, I wanted to add a little bit of extra personality, something like a story, you know, a little bit of storytelling. And so a good way to do this is to have scratches. So where's my scratches? Okay, this is the version without the scratches, and this is the version with scratches. And in the final, if as you can see, like, I added like scars and a chipped tooth on the guy, because I thought I wanted to match the scratches here, you know, like the level of damage his armor took to, you know, the level of damage he would, you know, logically have to take too, because I mean, this is fantasy, but he's literally wearing no helmet, so he should take a few bumps. And it sort of reminded me of you know, hockey players, like these goon type of hockey players from the 70s who would just be hired on a team just to rough up the other players, like no skill whatsoever, just like there to rough up the other player. And that's kind of like, it's a kind of interesting take on the paladin, you know, like they're like these soldiers of, you know, light and good and whatever, but it can be interesting to have like one guy just be hired. Okay, he's on the team of the good guy, he has like moral values and everything, but he's truly like he's a brawler at heart, so he takes a certain pride of taking bumps and everything and wearing no helmet and whatever. So yeah, I kind of like the idea, because he's still a little too Prince Charming there, and it's okay, but this idea of adding scratches made me want to like take the story a little further. But yeah, like the wear and tear is super important in Hearthstone and you know, Blizzard art. Like there's always nicks and scratches and stuff on the armor, kinks, everything, you know, and it's visually it's pretty pleasing. But let me show you how I did it, because there's a sort of science to it, right? So let me take the normal sketch, tone it down a little bit, and basically I sort of went with a marker and, you know, sort of mapped out, you know, okay, where do I want these scratches, and where are they coming from? You know, they're coming from I guess claws from demons, right? Like, or evil creatures. So you have like these two, you know, 2 or 3 lined claw marks here and there. 2 is kind of cool because it's not too conspicuous, and if you think about it, like maybe it's more irregular. Like animals have 3 claws, you know, like birds, lizards, whatever. A demon having 2 claws is kind of interesting. It's like a weird primal beast feeling. So I sort of like, you know, draw like first big curves like this, and then, you know, elaborate a little bit. Use the thickness. You see, I'm sort of like, let me zoom in. I sort of use the natural thickness of the armor to indicate where things would be smaller and where would they pick up again. You go from narrow to big. That's a nice like visual variety, and it's also logical. Like, it's something also I sort of talked about before, right? Like this merging logic with appeal, like aesthetic appeal, and that's the whole science, you know, behind art. In what's Atelier's anatomy video, Voita, I watched it this morning, and the guy was talking about you know, this sort of idea, like making a picture look cool. So you have the logic, you have like what anatomy dictates, and you have like your own interpretation of it. So even with anatomy, so when it comes to, you know, scratches and designs and everything, it's even more the case. You know, you can really go crazy. So yeah, like any of you guys, if you haven't yet, like I recommend going on the Discord server, and Voita shared this What's Atelier video. It's pretty cool. The guy's a master anatomy draftsman, and I was pleased to sort of hear the same sort of thing I kind of advertise, you know. So yeah, nicks, you know. For example, you could have like one here that sort of continues there and just scratches a little bit in the middle, and you kind of offset a little bit, you know. It goes like this and like this because of how far these plates go, right? But because the elbow plate is more inside, he would take, you know, the nick would, like the scratch would sort of be more to the side there. We can sort of imagine it like having gone like this, you know. And if we would rotate, you know, because it's like the thing has been rotated to the side and was scratched from that side, you know. And these sort of little extra visual, you know, subtleties are pretty cool. That once you notice them, once you get this aha, you know, this eureka idea, it's really awesome to try to figure out how to draw it. And sometimes, you know, like you don't need to be super good at it, but just the intention, you know, like if we can recognize the intention, and if it's a cool intention, it can really help sell the idea very, very well. And it can really score you some good points with your clients, with viewers, you know, online. You know, taking risks is super important. Even if you're not sure if you're gonna nail it, just trying is awesome, because you're going out of your way to tell a richer story, and that's always appreciated, you know. So yeah, you know, well, that's pretty much how I did it. I sort of mapped it out with silhouettes. I really like silhouettes because you can really see the visual impact right away. So the silhouette of these scratches, and then I sort of sketched them, you know. So here I would take a sketch brush and, you know, and make the middle line, of course, you know, this sort of the line inside, you know. Here. Wow, it's already so, or almost 2 hours. I'll keep it at 2 hours, I promise. And then if you're still, you know, up for it, if you're motivated, we can have a hangout in the chat, and you can let me know, you know, your questions. If you need feedback on a piece, you know, it'll be fun. But we're almost done anyway with this this session. So then you can even like select, you see, press Control, select the content of the, you know, these silhouettes here, and then go to your basic sketch and press Return, like delete the content of the sketch, of that area, that selection. And now you see where you had sketch, now it's empty. And you can just sort of, superimpose. Yeah, now you have your sketch. And now you can merge the two. And you have this neat little, you know, line art effect. And I prefer it to just going straight with line art, because line art can be sometimes deceiving. You know, you don't see the volumes very clearly. At least I don't. So yeah, silhouettes is always good. And yeah, so that's basically it, I guess. I recommend that. One more thing I wanted to show you is the inside edges. You see here you have like these extra edges in the middle. That's pretty important. That's pretty useful, and I recommend you keep them on a separate layer, because these, once the character is lit, it should normally catch light, you see. So I would like invert it, you know, like turn them white, so that it's easier to light your character. Because if they're black, you're gonna have to paint a highlight. I'll go more into detail later, you know, like in the next sessions about coloring and lighting. But you're gonna have to go over these edges to make them white, you know, to make them light, to make them catch that light, that edge light. So keep them separate, and when the time has come, you know, turn them white so it's easier for you to paint over. Let me go through my notes quickly, because I want to make sure I addressed everything. Yeah, okay, just one little thing that's super simple, but let me see. It's here. Like this thing is what I would give to, you know, a client. That would be really ideal. Like sometimes time is of the essence, so you go straight to something, you know, works, you know, especially if you have a nice relationship with your client, if they're experienced with you, if they're used to your process, they know, you know, they might not be they might not need everything to be spelled out. However, any extra choice is always welcome, and it, like I said before, it will really, like, squeezing your brains like this will really take your art to the next level. However, when you submit this selection to your client, make sure it's only designs that you are happy with, that are like have enough variety, contain enough different information. This is still pretty basic, like a armor design. Like I didn't reinvent the wheel here. It's all stuff that exists. I just sort of repurposed everything. However, there's enough variety in between them that I'm confident sending these as a selection. And one thing you can do, like, make sure, because this sounds superfluous, but it's pretty important. Like, make sure the dimensions of your final design sheet is pretty reasonable, like within 2000 pixels on one side, 72 pixel resolution, and that makes for a smaller file, while still being able to see the information. And by the way, at this point, the sketch is still pretty rough, as you can see, so there's no need to show the full grain of your pencil sketch, your pencil brush and everything. It's all rough enough that such a low resolution is definitely okay. And an extra thing to reduce the size of your email attachment is to, on Photoshop, you press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-S, and that will open a specific save. It's called Save for the Web. Then go to JPG here and save your thing, and this will make it like 5 times smaller than a normal JPG, like a full resolution. Like, for the same resolution, by the way, for the same dimension, saving for the web with Ctrl-Alt-Shift-S, that will really save a lot of space. And the images will load quickly and conveniently for your client. He will, they will really save a lot of and like collaborations that go over years like that. You can end up sending a ton of pictures, like really countless pictures. So if these pictures are reasonably sized, this will make like this, you won't like fill your Google Drive or something. Like it will be easier also for your client to stock without needing too much space. So let me go back to the process sheet here and make sure I sort of addressed everything. I think I did, but of course, let me know if you need further explanations. So I won't keep you guys any longer. I'll be in the Discord server, in the voice chat. If you're new, feel free to join. Like, introduce yourself, and that would be cool. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I'll just take a quick break and be there in 5 minutes. And that's it. Next session will be next week, and we'll tackle coloring, lighting. That would be fun. Another crazy crazy amount of information, I think. But anyway, all right. Thank you very much, and see you next time.